Hello and welcome to the Pineapples, the Festival of the Pineapples, even the live judging of the Pineapple Awards for Place. This is an awards program that seeks to recognise built environment projects and initiatives that make a positive social impact on the wider place and its people. And this is the judging of the category building. My name is Harriet Saddington. I'm an architect and writer, and I am your chair for this category. So, this Pineapple Award seeks to recognise a completed building that makes a positive contribution to the wider place and its people through its design and programme. And we have some excellent finalists to share with you. So, a reminder of the rules: each presenter has just 10 minutes to pitch to the judges, who then have 10 minutes to ask questions. And after hearing all the presentations, the judges will deliberate in private to decide on the winner. The winners will be announced at a fantastic awards party on the 22nd of April at Trinity Buoy Wharf in London. Tickets to the party are on sale now at thepineapples.co.uk. And a selection of finalists will also be invited to present their project on stage at this summer's Festival of Place. That's on the 10th of June at Box Park, Wembley. Passes to that are on sale too. It's a brilliant day. So feel free to use the emoji button at the bottom, cheer on our presenters today as much as possible, and share your comments in the chat. But just a reminder that the judges will be the only ones asking questions. If you want to make the presentation slides bigger, you can enable full screen mode. You'll see a pop-out button towards the top right of your viewing window. And so let's get going. Time to meet our judges for this category. Please welcome Mark Lebain. Mark is Chief Operating Officer at Hadley Property Group. He has over 25 years of experience in the management and delivery of complex mixed-use urban regeneration projects and high-quality residential schemes in the UK and overseas. He is responsible for overseeing all operational activities at Hadley Property Group, with key input into the company's larger schemes. Previously, Mark was an integral part of the Battersea Power Station development team for Parkview, which achieved detailed consent in 2006 for a 5 million square foot mixed-use scheme. And we also have James Bruce. James is a director at Civic's North Studio, a UK-wide practice at the forefront of engineering design, creating inspirational structures and places that have a positive impact on the environment and enable people to lead happier and healthier lives. James is an experienced chartered structural engineer who has a passion for sustainable projects, including net zero new builds, creative retrofit and reuse projects, and the transformation of historic and listed buildings. And we also have Lizzie Lynch. Lizzie is the Communications and Influence Lead at United St Saviour's Charity, a Southwark-based organisation that has been supporting the borough's communities since 1541. The charity works to build strong, inclusive and equal communities where everyone can thrive through its 4 almshouses, community investment programme and 1 Southwark programme. Lizzie has led on the communication strategy for the charity's newest almshouse, the award-winning and Sterling Prize-nominated Appleby Blue, and now oversees all external affairs across the organisation. She is passionate about storytelling that centres people and place and believes deeply in the power of good design and people-centric housing support models. So welcome to all the judges and welcome to all the audience. It's now time to hear from our first project. So first up, we have Marylebone Square, City of Westminster for Concord London, with E8 Architecture, Kier Construction and LIV Interiors. And this is going to be presented by Jason Dreyer and Olivia Green from Concord London. So hopefully you will appear on screen. You can see Jason standing up, ready for the presentation. I can't hear you, but I can see you.
Yeah, standing up, it's much more comfortable.
Excellent. Right. Okay. I will leave you to it and see you in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Good luck with your presentations. So let me begin with a story, not of a building, but of a missing tooth in a beautiful Georgian smile. In the heart of Marylebone Village, one of London's most characterful Georgian and Victorian neighbourhoods, there sat a piece of land that time had forgot. For over 50 years, It was nothing more than a surface car park, a void, a gap, if you like, in a place known for its intricate streets and intimate scale. Marylebone Square is a story of what happens when you take that void, that gap, and replace it with a tooth that's just the right shade and turn it back into a part of the city's living fabric. Chapter 1. Repairing a long neglected village smile and a piece of the city. The story begins with reconnection, revitalization, and a restoration of identity. Marylebone Square is the first entirely new city block built here for more than 5 decades. But instead of imposing something new, it does something rarer. It gives back what was lost. 4 historic streets, Aybrook, Mopson, Kramer, and St. Vincent's, are reinstated. The neighborhood's original grain returns. The urban fabric becomes whole again. The beautiful Georgian smile is beaming once again. In placemaking terms, this is urban repair at its most literal and symbolic. And under the surface, the project removes outdated car dominance by replacing a surface lot with 100 EV-enabled underground spaces, freeing the ground plane for people, not vehicles. The purpose? Simple but powerful. To restore Marylebone Village's character while stitching a long neglected site back into everyday community life. Chapter 2. It's about the people. Marylebone Square excels not through gestures, but foundations. 79 new homes, including 25 on-site affordable units, which is around 30% provision, offering homes for key workers and local residents. Instead of pushing affordability outwards, the project keeps people within the community, preserving the mixed social character that makes Marylebone feel like a village. The new community hall, aptly named Marylebone Hall, anchors the ground floor. It is open, it is flexible, and it is civic-spirited, used for events, gathering, and neighborhood programming. Around the building, independent retailers are carefully curated, chosen not to compete with the Marylebone High Street, but to complement it. And importantly, during the construction, the beloved farmers market remained in operation. Continuity of local life was designed into the process, not retrofitted. This isn't a building that lands on a neighborhood, it lands with it. Chapter 3. A quietly radical approach to urban living. Improving how people live, gather, and connect, Marylebone Square's innovation is subtle but transformative. Reinstating historic streets is placemaking innovation. It reinforces livability, movement, and walkability. Retail innovation that centers people, not profit. Before occupation, units supported meanwhile use independence, giving local creative entrepreneurs a foothold in the local economy. Several, including Neco Health and Special Guests, have chosen to stay as long-term tenants. Innovation with human purpose. A naturally ventilated 5-story central courtyard turns a dense urban block into a fairy tale small internal neighborhood floating in an urban forest. Daylight, air, greenery, live landscaping, and a social proximity support well-being with resilience without reliance on mechanical systems. Functional, flexible, and future-focused. The building structure includes no fixed retail partitions, allowing units to merge and subdivide. The program is designed to shift. Retail, workspace, community uses can evolve as Marylebone evolves. It is innovation expressed not through spectacle, but through intelligence. Chapter 4. A place made to endure. Here, every layer has purpose. Homes that breathe. Dual aspect apartments frame light and air around a central courtyard, supporting natural ventilation and everyday comforts, and as well as opportunity for neighborly engagement. Active edges, a sheltered colonnade creates a rhythmic civic frontage, retail units that spill onto the streets, strengthening activation and walkability. a community living room, Marylebone Hall, a flexible, open plan, open space, and a market hall that stands as a civic anchor. With adaptability baked in, the building's structural grid supports future reprogramming, whether it be civil living, co-living, or boutique hospitality. This is architecture that respects the present and anticipates the future. Marylebone Square is a long-term contribution to place resilience. Sustainability. Marylebone Square's sustainability story is holistic, targeting BREEAM Excellent, which is the top 10 of UK buildings, Code for Sustainable Homes at level 4, 150 PV solar panels integrated into a green roof, great water recycling and runoff reducing roofscape, recycled UK sourced aluminium and ceramic facades, and off-site modular construction, minimizing waste. And crucially, no demolition, meaning no embodied emissions from clearing existing structures. It's a sustainability strategy grounded in material intelligence, energy performance, and whole life carbon awareness. Chapter 6, Stewardship. Marylebone Square's governance story is one of partnerships, extensive consultations through exhibition, workshop, and resident engagement, ongoing collaboration with the Westminster Council, farmers market preserved throughout construction, and a financial model for long-term management and community benefit. Marylebone Hall formerly operated as a civic asset, not a private amenity. This is stewardship, the kind that builds trust, not just buildings. So, what is Marylebone Square? It is the repair of a 50-year gap in a beautiful Georgian smile. It is the strengthening of community through affordable homes and independent retail. It is a healthier, greener, more walkable piece of the city. It is a building shaped by governance, crafted with care, and designed for adaptability. It is a place that feels unmistakably Marylebone, rooted in history, but confidently facing forward. In short, quiet, precise, deeply human, and entirely of its place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jason. That was wonderful and just on time. So I will now use, well, it was a bit under time, so we've got more time for questions, which is always
great.
So I'm going to invite the judges onto the stage, please, to join us. Hopefully they'll be coming right now. There we go. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. And see you all just, James, turn the camera on. I think it's coming. So I'm going to start with Lizzie, please. You have a question.
Yeah, sure. So we actually all managed to get around to seeing the building last week. So it was good to hear your presentation as well. I suppose coming at it from a social impact, social value perspective, we managed to see inside some of the private flats, but I would be interested to know kind of how much the design of the inside of the affordable housing reflects that of the private and how different they are, because we only saw the kind of private element. And then also my other question was around the community space that has been given back to Westminster Council, and how, if the market's not happening in there, how that space is actually kind of being used and what kind of activities are going on in there for the rest of the community.
Thank you. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll answer the market hall question first, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Correct. The space has not been occupied by the farmers market, but we are currently, and it has been a place used for a number of events. We had some lovely orchestra events in there. Is that right? Yeah. But we're obviously looking for more engagement and more activation there. And right now, over the last kind of 3 months, we've been trying to unpick some lease constraints that will help us to make the place more accessible for more parties that Westminster that partner with. And again, it's all about bringing the community into that hall. It's not about creating something that turns a profit. This is about supporting Westminster, collaborating with Westminster to help them achieve a really useful community use in that space. In terms of the affordable housing, as far as I understand, and forgive me because I wasn't actually part of the project at the time, so I'm catching up. So I can't speak to how there are similarities between the two, private and affordable. What I can say is that there is definitely homage to the private in the affordable. There's a lot. As far as I've seen, there's a lot of space, and there wasn't a skimping and scraping on design or quality in those spaces. And I think it came at a really important time in our recent history, in terms of supporting those key workers in a key area in London at a key time.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. James, please, if you've got a question.
Sure, thank you. You mentioned that Marylebone has a strong historic character and grain, and this was the missing piece. How did you ensure through the design that the scheme enhanced the surrounding conservation context rather than competed with it?
Well, I think if you look at the massing of the building itself, one of the most important things through consultation was that we don't stand out, that we blend into that kind of Georgian Victorian sort of massing. And I mean, the proof's in the pudding. If you stand on that street now, specifically as it's activating more through the retail, like I said, it's not a place that lands on or has landed on the village. It's landed in the village. And there's obviously the architectural sort of language speaking to some of the through the steel banisters on the balconies. We're sort of talking to some of the musical history of the era, etc. And yeah, that's kind of how we thought about it.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Mark.
Hi, Jason. Couple of quick questions. Not too difficult, I don't think. First of all, could you just tell me how the design team and the developer connected with the local community, sort of through the design phases and planning phases?
So there was I'm talking about large events, consultation events, exhibition events that were held with a very open arms policy to bring forward, whether it be planners, local communities, those in favor, those objecting, into a space, so that it became more of a kind of a collaboration and real input from the community. This was a lengthy process from start to finish, and part of that program and the length of program was because of the importance of the input through those exhibitions, through the consultations with the community and the planners.
Okay, thank you. And just a question on the courtyard. The courtyard, I mean, the courtyard's very successful in bringing natural light into the center of the building, and creating dual aspect units. Just wondering, whether it's well used as a space and how it's used. Obviously, there's potential difficulty around noise if people are playing or too noisy. Is it well used? What's the
So,
and how? What are the uses?
so the space was created for peaceful reflection, tranquility, neighborly engagement. The way it's laid out, with all the beautiful live landscaping, with reflection, with a reflection pool. Sorry. Yes, with benches, etc. The idea has been realized in terms of how the neighbors who you might think are kind of in the exclusive realm of society, there is definitely a sense that the space is used for sitting on a bench next to the pool, enjoying an outside-inside scenario. And from what I can tell in dealing with the residents through over the last year and a half, 2 years, everybody has sort of come together and created a little village in a village, if that makes any sense. So I think the sort of ambiance of the place, it kind of inspires relaxation and openness for engagement with your neighbor.
Okay, thanks, Jason. That's all for me.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else? We've got about another minute. If anyone has another burning question, but if not, we'll say thank you to Jason and move on to the next. So thank you very much. Emojis.
Have a good day, guys.
Thanks, Jason. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next up, we have demonstration modular home, London Borough of Newham, for Roll Along with Waits Residential, RCKA Architects and Design for Structures. And this is going to be presented by Adam Harkin, Senior Structural Engineer, Design for Structures, and Russell Curtis, Director at RCKA. Here we go. Hello, Adam. Hello, Russell.
Hi.
Hi. And here are the slides.
Great. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, all good. So I will see you in 10 minutes.
Okay, good stuff. Thanks a lot. Well, it's something completely different now from what you've just seen. 1 in 21 kids in London are currently living not in permanent homes, and councils are spending £5.5 million a day on substandard accommodation, and it's a scandal, and we should be ashamed of ourselves. We need rapid solutions to this. We need to deploy them quickly. It's a public emergency. We've come up with a potential solution to this, a potential option, which is permanent quality homes that can be installed quickly and efficiently to a very high standard that achieve that effectively homes that could last up to 60 years but can be moved around relatively easily. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. So this is a demonstrator prototype that we built just over a year ago and landed outside the building centre in the West End. It turned up on 3 lorries at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Friday morning and was assembled in 2 or 3 hours. And it's since moved 6 times. And it's an example of how you can create truly relocatable modular homes that don't involve compromises in terms of the internal accommodation. In fact, the internal accommodation is significantly better than a lot of proper permanent homes. And we're just in the middle of installing our first scheme out in Romford on the Waterloo estate, which is that visual on the right, 18 new homes. It's a stalled site. This is a meanwhile use, and it will be in place for a number of years, providing 18 homes, 18 family homes, housing some 50 or 60 people. these are some photographs of the interior. So as you can see in those images on the right, those are all genuine images taken inside the module when it was outside the building centre. You can see from that it is, you know, nothing less than a very nice, nicely designed family home. The image on the bottom left is a refresh of it that we installed outside City Hall for a month at the end of last year, and was launched by Tom Copley, the Deputy Mayor for Housing and Regen. But it is designed to be a very high quality home, but also the placemaking is of utmost importance. So it's not just about the homes themselves and the interior of them, but also how these are sited. So they are intended to be good neighbours to people and settle quickly into a local area, even if that is a meanwhile use on a site that might be stalled or whatever. Adam, you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, so what we've created isn't just a modular home, it's a system. Standardized modules create 1 to 4 bedroom homes with the ability to go beyond if we require. Everything is digitally coordinated for clash-free, build-ready certainty, with 90% of it happening in an off-site factory control condition. This reduces waste and improves quality. It's designed, as Russell said, for a 60-year lifespan, and that takes into account multiple redeployments over that time. Demountable foundations and a robust steel frame means the modules can be lifted and relocated elsewhere with minimum ground disturbance. This transforms temporary housing from a disposable expense to a long-term public asset. Instead of spending money on nightly hotel rates, councils invest once and own an asset that they can relocate and reuse for 60 years. After 3 to 5 years, the homes have paid for themselves through savings, but they can keep delivering value for decades to come. It's resilient by design, adapting to changing community needs over time. These visuals are a time lapse from the installation at the Building Centre in London. And as can be seen from these, the modules can easily be installed on even the tightest of sites. Environmental performance is integral to this system, and it starts at the design stage. Design Structures provided complete design coordination using DFMA principles, which means that every element is coordinated digitally before manufacture. Through this coordination, we achieved clash-free build-ready certainty early in the design process, which reduced rework and material waste. This digital certainty then enables factory precision, which reduces waste by around 90% and cuts build time by roughly 30%. Factory control production delivers approximately 40% lower embodied carbon than traditional construction. Because the system is circular, fully demountable and recyclable, with complete digital traceability of every component, the environmental benefits compound with every relocation over its life. DFMA coordination at the front end enables this circular performance at the back end. This is truly a sustainable construction where the environmental values multiply over time rather than being lost after one use.
As I said earlier, although these are temporary homes, we need to stop calling them that. I mean, it's a meanwhile deployment, but they are permanent homes. They're homes that can be moved many times, and we see them forming part of a long-term sort of vision. Partly because they can be moved from place to place and repurposed as developments come forward, but also in the long term, these frames could be these modules can be reused and reallocated and turned into permanent homes for permanent locations. So in 60 years' time, they could still be providing decent homes for families in need. We reckon that there's around £63,000 saving per adult per year, and so these will pay for themselves within a 3 to 5 year period when purchased by the local authority. And it's important to hammer home the fact that these are fully compliant, fully space standard compliant homes. They're actually more generous internally than a lot of new build housing, and they're also certified, so warranted to BOPAS, and it's an asset that the local authority can purchase. There's a summary of where we are, but I thought I'd drop this sort of photograph. It was taken yesterday, as it happens. Nice blue sky. That's the first of the modules that I mentioned earlier in Havering in Romford being lowered into place. So that's the first of, I don't know how many there are in that. There's maybe sort of 80 modules or something in total. But I say each one just lands onto, sits lightly on the ground, sits on sort of small foundations, can be zipped up and connected in a couple of hours. I think that's it. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. Brilliant. That was incredibly inspiring. I'm going to invite the judges onto the stage, please, for some questions. Okay, Mark, I'm going to start with you, please.
Okay. Well, first of all, this fantastic project, fantastic ambition, and fantastic thing to be doing. As you said, really tough thing going on that needs to be sorted out. Couple of quick questions. 60-year life. Is there a danger of this temporary housing becoming used as permanent housing? And that's a bit of a worry of mine.
I think that's a real concern. One of the reasons that it's designed to this standard is that even if that were the case, it would still be a very quite high quality home. I don't think that there are no compromises really made in terms of how these are designed. They are conventional specification. It's simply the relocatable nature of it that is the innovation. In a way, because we know everything about the modules and because of the circular economy principles, they're very easy to refit. So one of the ideas is actually they do become permanent homes in the future, and that's perfectly okay. They might also be repurposed as other things because the frames are sort of standardized. So they could be other things, but the idea is that they could ultimately find a permanent home.
Okay, great. And just one more on time. You talked about it being quick to deploy. How quickly, for example, the site that you're doing at the moment, how quickly is that going to be from start to finish?
That's a good question. Adam might want to answer that one.
So we started work on that site, I think it was November last year, as in commenced all the design works. As Russell showed, we hit site yesterday and all of the homes should be installed within the next month.
So it's not the installation of the modules that's the issue, it's the groundworks.
It's everything else.
It's everything else. Yeah, it's everything else. But also the landscaping at the end. So one of the things to point out is that, as I said, the placemaking is incredibly important here. And in addition to the modules themselves, the interior of the homes, the landscaping around it, the spaces around these buildings is also of vital importance, because that's how a lot of people experience their homes as well.
Thanks. That's all for me.
Okay, thank you. James, please, if you've got a question.
Thank you. I agree. It's very ambitious and impressive project. A couple of questions from me is you mentioned the life cycle of the product in its entirety. How often do you envisage that gets demounted, and also how much refit are you in those figures are you estimating is required at each deployment of it?
So it's a good question. When you move the modules, there's a little bit of internal finishing, but it's literally like it's a compression seal between the frames, and a little bit of finishing around the edges of the plasterboard. And but other than that, that's it. I mean, it's basically a sort of a paintbrush. So these things and the external cladding sort of comes off as a piece, and you can then clip it back on again to cover the joint. So it really is hours to get an entire home that one, the demonstrator model, I think has moved 6 times already in the space of a year. Now, the intention would be that the Waterloo estate, the Romford homes are there for 5 years. But the council, in that case, the council has actually bought them as an asset, and then will be relocated after 5 years. So it's highly likely they're not going to be moved many times, but the capability to do so is really helpful. I mean, it's worth saying that part of this whole piece is also a wider discussion around planning use class, speed of deployment, that we're really interested in, whether we should be advocating for permitted development rights for this type of housing, for example. Because what we've talked about the construction bit, we haven't talked about the planning stuff that led up to it and the design, and that's actually a thing that takes most of the time. And we should just be able to just get these out of the factory and install them in their hundreds and thousands.
Well, sorry, I do have another quick question. Follow on, if that's all right. The MMC is a tricky construction type to make work successful. There's many companies that have tried it and struggled due to those kind of barriers in it being able to. You can manufacture it and employ it and deploy it very quickly, but there's many other barriers that stop that happening. It's not the physical bit that is the hard bit. How do you see that playing out with this, and how do you make this successful and not fail where others have done in that part of the construction?
Yeah, so I think one of the things here is the nature of the structure, which I had to maybe talk about in a minute. But it's a hot roll frame, which is sort of infinitely reusable. So it can be, if they do end up being recycled in the future, they can also be a higher fleet for sort of construction cabins. They can be turned into classrooms. It's a standard frame system that we're using here. So actually, there is an issue with modular generally, and we know there's very high profile failures. The key thing here is the hot roll frame and the relocatability. And it's all based on a standard 10-foot container dimension. So the idea is that it meets conventional UK logistics systems. So 2.9 meters is a 10-foot container, which is why we're able to get them into central London, into Tottenham Court Road, and they all came down in a convoy and moved into place and were lifted into place within a couple of hours. It's because it integrates with with conventional logistics, and we're not trying to sort of make things unnecessarily complicated. Adam, do you want to say anything about that as well?
Yeah, I think the other bit to add is just, for example, on this Romford site, we've got a mix of 2 and 3 bedroom homes. The kitchen module is the kitchen module in all of them. The bedroom modules are the bedroom modules in all of them. So to go from a 2-bedroom home to a 3-bedroom home, we add in one more identical module. So it's that flexibility that we're not limited to saying that these must always be 2-bedroom homes. We could change them into 3-bedroom homes. We could change them into 4-bedroom homes, and we're still hitting all those requirements from a space standard point of view. And we're not duplicating or creating new module types. We're utilizing those modules that have already been built once.
Yeah. It's also worth saying that in addition to that, each module, although you'll see some 2-story, at the end there's 2-story blocks in that scheme. All of the modules have integrated roofs, so when they're relocated, they can be stacked in different ways. So they're entirely sort of componentized, so that there is flexibility, and you could stack them vertically. For example, the hot roll frame again allows you to stack them vertically because they all fit together so cleverly, and it's a kit of parts rather than a single thing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Lizzie.
Hi, yeah, amazing project. Well done on trying to tackle such an important issue. I am quite interested in kind of what kind of consultation you did with families in temporary accommodation to kind of get to this design, and how it impacted where we are now.
That's a great question. So I've been doing a lot of work on this, our practice has been doing a lot of work on this recently, and I've been to see quite a lot of temporary accommodation schemes, particularly some less successful modular ones. But I think so we know we were starting off with quite a good baseline of what to do and what not to do. I think there is the best testament to this, I think, is when we had the demonstrator module installed in Romford Market, and we were showing people around, and we had visitors from all of the boroughs, from all of the the TA teams and the housing regen teams from all the London boroughs came to have a look at it, and we were there and were sort of sitting it waiting for people to turn up, and people walking past came in and they would walk around it with their kids, just the general public, just sort of happened to be out out in Romford on a weekday morning, and they said, I wish I could have one of these. I wish my flat was like this. Because you walk in and the sense of space and the quality of the the materials and the light in there is amazing. And and I think it's probably safe to say that not many people on this call have woken up in a hotel room this morning, and that's what we're facing, and this is what we need to do something about, and that that's why it's so important.
Yeah.
Thank you. Brilliant. Okay. On that note, we will finish, and thank you very much for your time.
Thanks. Nice to see you all. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so on to our next presentation, which is Manchester Metropolitan University Science and Engineering in Manchester for Manchester Metropolitan University with BDP, 5+ Architects Curtains, Hawley, Turley, and Gardner and Theobald. And this is going to be presented by Mike Riley, Director at BDP. Mike, there you are. And
hello.
Hopefully your slides will come on too. Okay. Great. I will see you in 10 minutes. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So thank you very much for inviting me to talk today. So I'm going to talk about the Dalton building, which is the Science and Engineering building at Manchester Metropolitan University. And I thought that it'd be really interesting to sort of tell you the bit of the story about how we came to actually design this building in a bit of detail. So we took an approach that can be described in these sort of 6 diagrams, reading from the sort of top left all the way through to the sort of bottom right. And some of the key elements of the brief from the university's point of view was that it actually, the Man Met campus is very much at the heart of the city, and it forms, along with the business school on the opposite side of the Mancunian Way, the opportunity to create this really important gateway into the city. So the Mancunian Way is a sort of elevated roadway that comes into the city, and sort of hundreds of thousands of people every day sort of pass these 2 buildings. So from the university's point of view, they were really keen to actually make sure that between the business school and the science and engineering building, it actually was very much visible as an educational establishment that was giving back to the city. Then a key element of the design then was actually ending up to create a civic presence to the city, so to the actual urban grain of the streets around the site. They were very keen to make sure that there was public realm, there were very clear entrances, you could see into the building, but you could very much understand that it was a science and engineering building. You sort of, you could see the research and the teaching and the specialist elements of the building uses actually being put in show here. Then it's about creating a great environment for interdisciplinary working internally. One of the core things that the core parts of the vision from the faculty's point of view was to actually make sure that actually that informal coordination between the departments happened in a very organic way and actually drove high quality research and teaching. And because where it is in the city, it's a very urban site, but we did consider the sustainability elements and the sort of user comfort elements of it. So the laboratory parts of the building, which are very sort of internal spaces, they're sealed boxes. It turns its back on the noisy areas, and it puts all of the workplace to the north with the great views of the city, better control against glare, etc. And then we wrapped the whole of the site, both the new build elements and the refurbishment elements, with a sort of coherent facade facade that really had a sort of piece of science engineering quality to it, without sort of boxing the university in, and it gave them opportunity then for sort of future development. And hopefully the slide will move. It wouldn't be a presentation without a slight technical hitch, would it? Oh, now it's gone back 5 slides. Apologies for this. Right. So once we'd actually sort of set the concept for how the site and captured the elements of the vision, then we had an approach to how we would design this building, which was very much setting back from the street to give it that civic presence. It was expressing the functions of the building so that you actually had elements of undergraduate teaching and visibility and showcasing all happening at the lower elements of the building. And then actually it's responding to the urban site by articulating the workplace and the research elements of the scheme towards the top of the building. And I think a critical part of this this project was very much about actually making sure that we were responding to the streetscape, we were being part of the city, and actually being very mindful that although there is a teaching and research and workplace element to this building, it was actually seen in context of its the neighbourhood of actually being responding to the residential uses which were close by to the site. So key elements of the approach was very much about actually having this gold facade which wraps the building in the upper levels. The science and engineering sign provided views from that elevated roadway into the super lab, which was one of the core transformations in their teaching for the cohorts of the undergraduate students. It enabled them to actually teach a huge amount of students all at one go, rather than actually having to do multiple research teaching events that happened in sequence. So it freed up time to actually do that academic research as well as the teaching environment. A key element then for the project was very much about identity. There were 4 departments actually within this building, and what we did was we worked with the departments to identify imagery that was associated with the various science that was happening in the building. We looked for images that occurred within each one of those science disciplines, and we actually brought these all together to actually create an abstract pattern then that actually was used on the external facade and also as a motif internally on staircases, glass screens, etc., to really drive home to the student body and to the city itself that actually this was the building with a huge amount of identity and quality to it, that was a home, and it was something that could be used very frequently for a lot of the people there. And I think a key part of that sort of element of it being a sort of home for the university was by giving it this ability to be easily recognizable. It also then actually started to think about how it would work from a sort of philosophical point of view for when the students joined. So taking a section through the building, we worked really hard with the users to try and think about where the best sort of functions would occur in the building. So the lower parts of the building were very much about undergraduate study. This idea that you would join as an 18-year-old, you would be coming into an environment that was very much like a scientific workplace. It was giving you a high quality of environment. It was enabling you to have those interactions and social and professional, informal and formal interactions that would actually tell you what it was like to be a scientist. And then as you move up through the building to the upper stories, that's almost once you've graduated, this was where you'd go to do your doctorate. This is where you'd go to do your sort of your work life. This is where you'd become an academic. This is where you do your research. And then actually you still had the similar sort of environment. So you could see that you were sort of moving through the ages of literally age and also ages in your career itself. And that was an important part of this scheme. So internally, what that translated to is it translated to an incredibly flexible building. And we took, from a sustainability point, a very long life, loose fit approach to the structure. So it's very large spans, open spaces, hard, durable materials that would look good for a long period of time, introducing natural timbers for warmth, etc. But in these spaces particularly, they were designed so that in a day-to-day operation, they could be social, but in other settings, you could invite trade shows, you could have industry events, you could have local community sessions, all actually sort of coming into this space and using it and changing the purpose of it. So it was all very, very adaptable and part of actually giving back wider to the wider community. And I think that sort of idea of make sure that people were involved and actually helping us to design this design these spaces followed through to the workplace above. So there were a series of departmental homes for the students that were dotted around the building, and we worked very hard with the student body to actually involve them in trying to get their identity of their departments into the design, whilst actually giving them the flexibility to show the rest of the academics and the students who just come to this building because it's a great place to work. It showed them what they do on a day-to-day basis. It gave them an ability to highlight their good quality work and the best practice that they're actually doing throughout their academic and research life. At a core, though, this building is all about transformational science teaching. It's all about research. It's all about laboratory spaces. They're all highly technical spaces that are in this building. So at the heart of this, we had to be very clear about the functionality and making sure the functionality of this building actually shone through importantly in every aspect of the scheme. So apologies for the technical glitches there, as it was sort of skipping too much, but thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any questions now.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Mike. That was great to see. I'm going to invite the judges onto the stage, please, as well. And the technical glitches were not major at all. I think we caught everything. So thank you. And James, I think you did. I'm going to start over to you to start with, please.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Mike, for the presentation and your time taking me around the building earlier this week. When we were walking around, we were discussing how much of a step change this building is in the provision for the university in terms of the technological advancement in what's in the building and how it's at the Super Lab, for example. Obviously, major academic buildings like this can become obsolete quickly due to that technological advancement and changing research needs. And how have you designed the building that it remains adaptable for the next 30, 40, 50 years? Sorry, go on.
Sorry, go on. I was going to say that is a great question, because I think that is a challenge in the sort of sustainable and long life sort of requirements that we have on all buildings now. It's a big investment in carbon, cost, etc., to actually invest from universities which are under a lot of financial pressure from both falling student numbers and actually the fast pace of technology. Things are changing so rapidly. We started designing this building in 2012, and at that time there was a strong directive from the faculty to say, if we knew what the future was going to bring, we'd be researching it now. We want to be on the cutting edge of research and teaching, etc. So what we did is we made sure that we made the core of the building as ultimately flexible as humanly possible. And we took the approach like taking inspiration from things like the old Victorian warehouses. They have been used many, many times because they're really permanent buildings. They've got big spans. You can take them back to their structure and refit them as many times as you want, and they are still in use, and they're still high quality spaces that we use today. So everything was, really big spans on the grids. They were all flat soffits so that you could actually take You could take the building services out and refresh them very easily. When we were thinking very much about the sort of longer term picture about, we know what they're doing now, but actually, when you want to knock 2 labs together, the MEP is designed so that it can now serve 2 labs, it can now serve 3 labs, it can now serve 4 labs, and it's a sort of scalable, sort of modular approach, which was very lean, very, very sort of adaptable, and yeah, it was a core part of the design, because I don't think the university would have built this building if they didn't have that sort of functionality baked into the whole basis of the project.
Thank you.
Lizzie, have you got a question, please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the presentation, Mike. I really like the identity element and how it's on the outside and the inside as well. I wondered if it's a residential area that it's based in, how much of those local residents are students and teachers, and how much are the kind of wider local community, and how much consultation you did with those outside of the university as well on the facade and how it interacts with the building.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a big mix of residents in this area of Manchester, and obviously the student population is quite a significant portion of that. There's a lot of student living, both from the university's point of view, but also from independent private providers. But that's not the only residents that are in the area. There are also people who own flats in Victorian Mills and other things that are in the area. So the university, when we were developing this design, is always really keen to be a sympathetic neighbour. They always want to be engaging with the community groups that are around the campus, because actually they understand that they are a part of the city and they are a part of that community. They're not a sort of independent sort of organisation. They don't want to turn their back on it. And you can sort of see that approach very much by the sort of, the views into the university, the fact that they're completely open buildings. Anybody can walk into them and sit there in the cafes, etc., and use some of the facilities. They've got events that happen afterwards that outside of academic times, where independent organisations can come in and use their facilities. So in terms of engagement that we actually had with the residents, they did things like actually have design days where we would actually put on mini demonstrations. We'd put boards up in parts of the university. We'd invite all of the residents through posters, websites, social media requests, etc., to actually get people to come in and talk to us about it. And as designers and as the faculty and as the university states, we would all gather around and answer questions, etc., and get feedback from them and use that to influence the design process and how it developed. I think everybody that we talked to was really keen that this development went ahead, partly because the previous use for the site was a quite outdated sort of 1960s low single-story industrial shed. It was very much at the end of its life. It was quite poor quality. It didn't contribute to the urban environment. So, those visioning sketches that we put up right at the front, where it said, create the civic presence to the street, create sort of urban realm and landscaping that added to the biodiversity, added to the quality of the streetscape. All of those sorts of things really helped people get excited about the project and really bought into the core principles of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, please, you've got a question.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for your presentation. That was really good. I've also got an engagement type question, but more about you touched on the sort of end user students and how they were consulted and you worked with those. How did you go about doing that? Was that co-design session? Was it face-to-face? Was it digital? How did you work with the end user students to bring them into the design?
That's a great question. And we did several things. I mean, this is a big build. It took a long time to get from concept through to the design process onto site. So we were very much mindful that actually there was going to be a group of students who might see the start of construction and literally just catch the end of it. So they'd be leaving the sort of educational system as the building was being finished. There were also people who were going to join halfway through, have a bit of disruption and so on, and then get this amazing building at the end of it. So what we did is we had a sort of structured plan that actually enabled us to talk to each one of the department students, and the faculty leads actually identified sort of champions for the design in the different year groups as they were happening, and we gathered together groups of them and we designed the department homes in collaboration with those students. So we talked to the engineering department and we said, what is it that the engineering department like to see when they go into their home? What is the identity of engineering? What is the identity of the other departments, and how does it vary? And some of it was about having literature on hand to be able to sort of get the students looking at the latest research and development. Other bits were sort of showcasing of the latest engineering gadgets and gizmos that they'd created and putting on show. Part of it was that they wanted to hang race cars in the actual atrium that I showed you. So all of those sort of cool things that they were really proud about and really wanted to shout about became an integral part of the identity, B, the spaces, and then C, where they actually live on a day-to-day basis. And it was a really core part of that, because as you can see from the scheme, we went from a very sort of traditional university to a very open university. All the spaces had good views into labs, but they were all collaborative. They were a lot more open than they were ever used to dealing with before. So there was a very large important push to make sure that the individual departments didn't lose the sense of place, the sense of personality, and the sense of belonging. And I think that was a really key part of the sort of departmental homes that we created in the building, because it gave them the opportunity to feel part of this new great building and this amazing development.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks very much,
Pleasure.
Mike. And I think that brings us to a close of this session. So thank you very much, judges and presenters. We're going to take a short break now, not long, just enough time to get a cup of tea and hopefully rejoin us for the second session, which will start in just over 10 minutes. See you there. Hello and welcome back to the Festival of Pineapples, the live judging of the Pineapple Awards for Place. My name's Harriet Saddington. I'm an architect and writer, and I'm your chair for this category. So this is the second half of the judging for building. This Pineapple Award seeks to recognise a completed building that makes a positive contribution to the wider place and its people through its design and programme. And we have some more wonderful finalists to share with you. So a quick reminder of the rules. Each presenter has 10 minutes to pitch to the judges, who then have 10 minutes to ask questions. And after hearing all the presentations, the judges will then deliberate in private to decide the winner. And who will win the Golden Pineapple? Well, that will be announced at a fantastic awards party on the 22nd of April at Trinity Buoy Wharf in London. Go buy your tickets, on sale now. A selection of finalists will also be invited to present their project on stage at this summer's Festival of Place, the most fantastic day, 10th of June at Box Park, Wembley. It's very inspiring, lots of great talks. So feel free to use the emoji button below to cheer on our presenters today. It makes a big difference, I think, and share your comments in the chat, but the judges will be the only ones asking questions. So to welcome back our judges, we have Mark Lebain. Mark is Chief Operating Officer at Hadley Property Group. He has over 25 years of experience in the management and delivery of complex mixed-use urban regeneration projects and high-quality residential schemes in the UK and overseas. Welcome, Mark. We also have James Bruce. James is the director at Civics North Studio, a UK-wide practice at the forefront of engineering design. James is an experienced chartered structural engineer who has a passion for sustainable projects, including net zero new builds, creative retrofit and reuse projects, and the transformation of historic and listed buildings. And we have Lizzie Lynch, communications and influence lead at United St Saviour's Charity, a Southwark-based organisation that has been supporting the borough's communities since 1541. Lizzie has led on the communication strategy for the charity's newest almshouse, the award-winning Sterling Prize-nominated Appleby Blue, and now oversees all external affairs across the organisation. She is passionate about storytelling that centres people and place and believes deeply in the power of good design and people-centric housing support models. So now it's time to hear from our next project. So first up, we have Brent Cross Plot 12202. Hope I said that right. London Borough of Barnet for Related Argent and L&Q with McCrana Lavington, Whittam Cox Architects, AKT to Sweco and All Clear. And this will be presented by Priska Thielman, Director at McCrana Lavington, and Dominic Edwards, Senior Development Manager at Related Argent. Welcome to you both. Hello. There you are. Great. And your presentation is coming. There it is. Over to you. I'll go away. See you in 10 minutes. Thanks.
Thanks. Great. Thank you so much, Harriet. Thank you also so much to our judges for joining us on the site visit last week. That was great. So this presentation is about 2 residential buildings in Brent Cross Town, one affordable and one private. And they are so special to be shortlisted for this award because they are the very first buildings to be completed in this large and ambitious master plan. And thus, they are the first buildings which have translated the high-level vision of the outline master plan into a tangible physical piece of city. Their design and execution is setting an example for the ambition of the wider neighbourhood.
Yes, and so what we wanted to focus on a bit more today is how these buildings meet the new park town that we are creating in partnership with Barnet Council. And the idea of a building meeting the town, I think, has 2 key, or we think it has 2 key elements to it. The first is the physical, urban and architectural pattern that Conductor House and the Delamar, plots 12 and 202, have set up for the town, as Priska mentioned. And the second is the way that they meet the existing community and, crucially, the expectations of local people in providing essential replacement housing, which I'm going to be talking about now. And a bit like our work in King's Cross, the story begins well before the first residents walk through the door of the new building, which happened this time last year, roughly. So here's what was completed several years in advance of that moment. The first major new mainline station in London for over a decade, Brent Cross West, was open, 2 new parks, a parade of shops supporting local businesses that are now being relocated into the permanent master plan, and a visitor centre where anyone can walk in and ask a question 7 days a week about the development. So this was the scale of the delivery before Conductor House and the Delamar were delivered into these green spaces and new connections into central London, which was all part of the strategy for bringing these buildings forward from the beginning. More importantly, perhaps, on the ground, these kind of key social spaces were there for future residents and other local people to take ownership of. And the events taking place in these spaces too, from summer festivals in the park, sports sessions, arts and crafts workshops in the pavilion, repair shops, Christmas fairs, family film screenings, as well as engagement directly with the residents, including the Whitefield residents seen here on the top right. By investing in all these, and there was also to date £230,000 community fund project, now having awarded funds to 52 community projects throughout the local area. We were sort of trying to embed these aspirations of the town before buildings were completed and giving the place tangible identity and benefit for locals that were going to be moving in there within the coming years. And that really set the context for the engagement we did on Conductor House more specifically, where residents of the Whitefield estate similarly took ownership of that process in what had been a very, very long wait for this building to come, well before Related Argent was involved to get to the point of walking down the road and into their new homes. This project has been an idea for the same amount of time as King's Cross has. And on the macro level, that included making sure that the replacement homes were the first homes to be delivered across the 6,700 planned for Brent Cross Town. But on the micro level, it was about several things. It was about all the specific needs of the residents being met, making changes and adaptations. We were doing that right up to PC, physical changes to the buildings, the bathrooms, for instance. Making sure that we were all personally involved in helping the residents understand what was happening, choosing their new homes. And this slide shows engagement over a span of probably over 5 years, from planning to the point of opening, on the bottom right there. finally facilitating with our contractor individual choices of internal finish colours and materials for every social rented tenant, again to provide a sense of ownership, which was really well received by the residents. So this came about over regular meetings in the Whitefield Estate Residents Steering Committee, who had open lines of communications with us throughout, but also more structured monthly Q&As for all the residents, and social events, meet your neighbours events on the top right, for instance. So it was a real partnership approach between the three of us, L&Q as operators, future operators of the building, Barnett and Barnett Homes as the owners of the Whitefield Estate, and one half of the joint venture with us, and Related Argent as the developer. And of course, the residents themselves. And we met individually nearly every resident during this time at some point, including Eileen and Gwen in the middle there on the bottom right, who were part of the steering committee. And here's Gwen again. The building met the wider aspirations for the town during its construction too. Issues with some local councillors and us and L&Q on the topping out of the building. Not only was the building also instilling health and safety innovations on site, linking to our sustainability goals and our district heating network with Vattenfall, for instance, building methods and operational carbon, but also it was who was working to construct it. We don't have time to go into loads of detail on all of these, but it was big part of our jobs and skills program setting up. And it's particularly nice that one of the apprenticeships and work experience placements we had supported through our local schools program is now actually a resident in Conductor House. So finally, here's what it's all about before I hand over to Priska. This is Linda at the Conductor House, who's lived on Whitefield Estate for 36 years, and Stacey at the Delamar. And they are now as much part of that continued story of Brent Cross Town as we all are, as we move forward with our project.
The Brent Cross Master Plan was laid out to create a higher density piece of city. And when we were invited to look at 2 plots in the residential quarter, sitting between the future High Street and the new park, it was our aim to make the neighbourhood feel urban in a London way, but also homely. We wanted it to be welcoming, vibrant and joyful, but also calm, comfortable and safe. How did we achieve it? Starting the detailed design, we interrogated the master plan and recommended that rather than 2 large donut-shaped plots with wide streets and wide courtyards, the site should be split into 3. This allowed the more intensive use of the ground and meant that the general datum of the building could be kept at a lower level, at a scale predominantly of 7 to 9 stories. The building height, which feels familiar relating to the urban context of inner London and European cities. This is obviously still a large-scale jump in the context of the very suburban setting of Brent Cross. In order to achieve a human grain of scale and to mediate with the surroundings, we added further to the building's volume articulation. Following on from that, we continue to interrogate the length of the buildings and the blocks and the streets. And worked on one of the plots. The plot straddles 2 clearly defined spaces, the future High Street to the north and Claremont Park to the south. We recognized that there was an opportunity to create a more residential, more intimate environment within the plot itself. We therefore split the building into 2 parts and integrated a network of smaller streets, and importantly introduced a public pocket park and a courtyard garden. These spaces are really important to us because we strongly believe that people's feeling of self and ability to desire to connect to others around them is strongly impacted by the neighbourhood and the immediate public realm that they live in. So while the interior of the buildings are obviously mostly private to the residents because they're individual homes, the public realm with the facades framing these spaces are all intrinsically linked to the experience of these homes. We see these outdoor spaces, as outdoor communal rooms. I will now take you on a walk around the buildings and through the spaces I've just mentioned. Approach from Claremont Park, the articulated facades with bays and balconies are engaging, and they are at once playful and formal. We generally have given careful consideration specifically to how the buildings meet the ground floor in order for the surrounding public ground to feel animated and safe. Facing the park, the bay windows provide depth and detail. The use of a gym and a shared workspace gives passive surveillance and safety, a feeling of safety. The main entrance to the building is via a central pavilion, which has people going in and out and is staffed. Moving around the corner into the residential streets, it was important to us to provide a rhythm along the length of the street and to increase the sense of a residential quarter and the character. So we introduced individual front doors and ground floor apartments. So they have these framed porches and front gardens. And this encourages neighborly conversations on the way in and out and provides a level of privacy. At the core of the site, so we're walking on the core of the plot, we introduced the pocket park, which adds a lovely, more intimate counterpoint to the larger parks. It's totally public, but it's likely to serve the residents that live immediately around it from the two different buildings, as well as the other plots either side. To us, it's always really important to think about the people's journey home from work or from school, and the feeling of the communal parts that they used to go to their flat. When arriving, we want people to have a feeling of comfort and maybe even a bit of pride when they get there. Very, very briefly, we're moving inside one of the affordable flats, which are all really carefully laid out. And in the case of Conductor House, relate very specifically to the requirements and the choices of the Whitefield Estate residents. People really value balconies, particularly when they are properly usable. So we always take great care to integrate them carefully into the plan of the unit. In Conductor House, they're designed to be half in, half out, providing a great view across the playing fields and the wider master plan, again, making people feel at home in this new place and not too windswept and being sheltered and feeling secure.
Thank you. I'm afraid we've come to the end. I don't know if you, if there were many slides still to get through, but
This is our last slide.
Okay, great. We can just linger on that for a minute, and I will invite the judges onto the stage, and hopefully anything you were going to say on this slide, you can get into the Q&A.
It really is a closing slide, so we're fine.
Okay,
It was
great. All right. And they have all visited as well. So lovely. Hello, judges. Great. I'm going to kick off with Mark, please.
Hello guys. Hi. Hello again. We had a nice walk around the site together, didn't we? That was very good. I think these are really great residential buildings, but my question is really about how they contribute to the sort of neighboring areas and the neighboring context. Whether you could give us some thoughts on that.
Yeah, we had lots of public engagement at the outset. I mean, obviously, we came on board when a master plan was already established, so people had been engaged within that process. So they were, I guess, prepared and knew that some change was coming. But as you could see in my kind of master plan development slides, it was obviously a very abstract thing at first that people were probably more worried about. And I think we could really see that through the process of engagement, of understanding what the buildings were going to be like, and we would draw lots of sections between the kind of back gardens of the two-story houses to the south of it and our buildings to reassure people of the height and bulk of massing and the expression that I think made people feel confident about it. And also then I think the commitment to the parks was already there as well. So they could see the positive side of the change.
I guess in some ways as well, what we were doing here is informing what the neighbours were going to be, because they were TBC, all of its immediate neighbours, because the plots that were coming further on the line were yet to be designed.
but the existing, I mean, they were
But the neighbours really were the Whitefield estate. So
No,
there
but
was this sort of there was a real sort of social fabric that we were landing into.
Yeah.
And there's the Eileen in the picture, she watched as we one of the directors at the time and I climbed up the crane to kind of go and view the whole of the master plan at the time. She said she'd been watching us through her binoculars from the Whitefield estate. So they were monitoring the process as our neighbours and keeping us true as we were building out the scheme.
Thank you.
Thank you. James, please, you can ask.
Sure, thank
Actually,
you.
Can I add one more thing to that question? Sorry, just very briefly. See, in our buildings, there's also the commercial units of the high street. So I think the neighbours will also be able to use all of those facilities rather than just coming to the pocket park as well. Sorry, James.
No, no problem. My question is about the identity, and when the wider Brent Cross master plan regeneration is further advanced and complete, for example, what role would this particular plot play in the identity of the place? And do you think would the master plan feel weaker without that particular plot and the buildings within it?
I think it absolutely will. Yeah. I mean, again, it's almost. I'm sorry to keep. I'll turn the question on its head again and say, well, actually, the whole of the outcome of the master plan is driven by this plot rather than the other way around. It has set the stall for the future of the scheme, both in the way, and answer your question, both in the way that it's sort of addressing the existing area socially, and those residents will always form a core part of the makeup of the town, and then the further affordable blocks that come along. But those were the only existing residents on the whole 180-acre site. So it will continue to serve a really important purpose socially. And the oldest member of the block has been there for 50 years. So they intimately know this place in a way that we don't. And also the building itself, architecturally speaking, I think, Prisca, you've seen some of the future RMAs that have gone in for the subsequent plots.
Yeah, I think it's really set an example in the way, for example, I mean, I've only very briefly shown the individual entrance doors. It's something that's been taken on the other plots, not in the same architecture expression, but as a method to engage with the ground floor. And also the treatment of the high street goes across, was kind of developed on our buildings, but across along the whole of the high street, so all ties together. So it's a real example setting process.
Great, thank you.
Over to you, Lizzie.
Hi both, good to see you again. Thanks for the presentation. I suppose my question, given these are the first buildings from the master plan, what kind of learnings are you going to take from the process of developing these two, and how are you going to apply those learnings to the rest of the master plan development?
It's a very good question. We're learning all the time. I mean, I think a lot of the lessons that we've taken away is probably actually in the we've learned as a business, probably for the first time fully, how a relocation process hopefully should work. I think in most cases we've made the right decisions and worked really closely with L&Q and Barnet to make that as kind of smooth and as positive a process, which can so often be a negative process, as it possibly can be. So I think there's a human element to the answer to that question, that we would probably look to do that again, maybe not at Brent Cross specifically, but on our future projects. And then I think as part of the wider place, there's a lot of construction knowledge that would need another hour to go into, that we've benefited from the delivery of both plots, which were both testing different methods of construction, particularly on plot 12 on Conductor House, where we had a kind of hybrid approach to the facade, which was meant to be and ended up being carbon saving. But we've subsequently, with that contractor, looked to remodel and test other ways of building on future plots. Actually, every single plot to date at Brent Cross has been delivered in a different way, to essentially learn what is the best way of delivering a town at this scale, and what can we do to increase sustainability, to increase speed of delivery, and efficiency. So I think those are probably the two that spring to mind most of all.
Great, thank you.
These big master plans, I always think a lot, because I've been in this position of designing the first buildings in a big master plan more than once, and therefore I always think about, you know, what will come after us. And I think a lot about repetition and variety, because, you know, there are great pieces of city where there's a lot of repetition. If the repetition is a nice thing, if you're repeating a great, you know, just think your Paris, or, you know, you can think of pieces of city where it's wonderful if there's a repetition. And then you also, obviously there's also such a joy in the variation. So I always find it then really exciting to see these master plans complete and built out, and you know, followed King's Cross, where we've also built the first building. It's fabulous to see it all coming together in a way that you can predict or not.
I'm thinking a lot about density as well as a
Yeah.
result. Like, this was actually a very dense urban plan, and it has continued to be such. And it was through this initial phase where we learned, no, that's okay, as long as we've, you know, we're really subtly looking at the way that these things interact. You take planners in your other projects to see certain elements which are sort of closer together, and then those moments of relief and the ability to always be seeing green space. All of those things are ingredients that have then spun off into the next phases.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation and to the judges, and we will now move on to the next one.
Thank you.
Great. So our next presentation is Loveday Belgravia, City of Westminster for Amazon Property Limited with Loveday & Co, EPR Architects, MS Safety in Design and Forms Structural Design. And this is going to be presented by Aaron Fox, Associate Director at EPR Architects. Aaron, hello.
Hi there, good afternoon.
Hi. And your slides, hopefully flying into, there they are. Okay,
Great.
Take it away.
And arrows at the bottom. Okay, great. Thank you. I'm just really excited to share this project with you all. Thanks for visiting last week as well. It was great to show you around. So I'll jump straight in. Loveday Belgravia is a 44-bed care home specialising in dementia and rehabilitation care within Westminster, whilst also successfully reaching out and engaging with the local community. But firstly, I just kind of wanted to touch on why a care home and of this type in this location. So there are almost 1 million people with dementia in the UK, and this is expected to exceed 1.4 million by 2040. 1 in 3 people in the UK will be affected by dementia in their lifetime, either by living with or caring for somebody who has dementia. Dementia affects 1 in 11 people aged over 65 across the UK. And in Westminster, which has a rapidly aging population with over 26,000 people aged over 65, 12,000 of those are living with long-term illness in Westminster. Also, almost half of those, 46.5% of people in Westminster aged over 65 are living alone. And over 2,600 people in Westminster will have dementia by 2030. Despite this, Westminster has the second lowest number of dementia beds in any London borough. And with this in mind, the project brief sought to address this shortfall, designing with care for dementia patients and the ageing local population at the forefront of the project throughout. The project delivers 44 high-quality care suites across 7 fully wheelchair accessible floors, with facilities for socialization, relaxation, and therapy. And the layouts we can get into designed to reduce anxiety, enhance independence, and support wayfinding. So the site is located within Westminster on a corner site between 2 large-scale multi-phase developments, the Chelsea Barracks site to the south and the Ebury Estate site to the west. Prior to the development of the site, it was a petrol station and vehicle garage with pavement crossovers on both street boundaries. A London poplar tree is positioned in close proximity next to the site that you can see in that image. And a Crossrail 2 service tunnel exclusion zone is sat below the other half of the site, which will be coming in the future. It adjoins the Belgravia Conservation Area to the west. So it's an exciting and constrained urban site. EPR's building massing responds to the emerging context whilst remaining sympathetic to the neighbouring conservation area townhouses. And you can see some of that massing in the blue and yellow hatches there, with our red zone being our site here in the corner that nestles between them. There was removing of vehicle crossovers and decontamination of the site with, so you can imagine, lots of fuel and below ground obstructions such as tanks that needed to be taken out and rectified once construction had started, and retention and protection of the existing tree as the building is cantilevered structurally over the root protection zone of the tree. Enhancements to the public realm with additional area provided for adoption by the local highways to improve pedestrian movements around the site and give some generosity on an otherwise heavily kind of urban site that was there before. To the next slide. So it was really important to design a building of strong architectural quality that improves the local area and its building users' experience, strong collaboration with local stakeholders, including Westminster City Council, the Grosvenor Estate, the Belgravia Society, Belgravia Neighbourhood Forum, and Residents Association. Interestingly, the building design actually helped to inform the Belgravia Society's design code that was being updated at the time of this project being developed. So a strong material palette that is sympathetic to the neighbouring conservation area and emerging context was used, informing the use of materials such as brick and stone. The London plane tree informed the design as the building curves around the tree and addresses the corner of the site. And an important architectural feature that the triple aspect bay windows with J-curved glazing enhance the building's architecture and ensure unobstructed views out from within the building. The interior design was carefully developed by EPR architects as well to both reflect the architecture and improve the user experience. Designed with a mid-century modern aesthetic, the design is based on the concept of a home from home. The use of texture, colour and warm materials are included to provide further assistance to residents who may be visually impaired or have physical disabilities. Seamless wayfinding is provided through the use of artwork and accent colours on each floor. The building, as we've discussed, enhances the character of its neighbourhood and improves the public realm. Loveday, as an operator, continue to engage with the local community and be a considerate neighbour by championing community connection and supporting the local economy. Local residents are actively engaging with and using the facilities available within the building for coffee mornings, lunches and music event. Luckily, one such event was witnessed during the judge's visit last week with local residents from around the site enjoying lunch at Loveday Belgravia to celebrate the Chinese New Year. Goods and services are sourced from nearby businesses, including butchers, florists and laundrettes, and partnerships with local groups have been established to deliver enriching activities for residents, such as gym sessions, art workshops and gardening. The project is an all-electric scheme that has achieved BREEAM Outstanding accreditation. The site has been fully decontaminated, transforming a former fuel station where retrofit and reuse was not possible. Integrating systems such as air source heat pumps, photovoltaics and biodiversity measures are used to significantly reduce its environmental impact. And internally, low VOC finishes and antimicrobial paints support a healthier environment, while high performance FF&E ensures longevity for use within a care home. The project continues to successfully cater for residents with different care needs, including rehabilitation, dementia, and nursing care. The rooms are designed to provide for flexible bed layouts, and soft spots are installed between rooms if required to combine rooms in the future. Views out and from within the guest rooms are carefully considered to maximise the comfort of residents living with dementia. A lot of research was done with papers such as kind of University of Stirling, dementia care, and the NHS guidance to make sure that we had a really hard-working but suitable scheme for its residents. And technology assists with the quality and the flexibility of care provided with CCTV, nurse call, and circadian lighting. The building's plan form is designed to provide residents with the opportunity to exercise with suites and communal lounges positioned on the outside of the plan, while services, storage, and back of house areas are located in the centre of the plan. Corridors do not have dead ends, providing comfort for dementia residents not to become lost. And I just wanted to finish on maybe just a quote from one of the residents. The detail, thought and care which has gone into the design of this building has so far been matched by its excellent ownership, management and care. We at EPR are really proud of the Loveday Belgravia project that continues to improve the lives of people in and around itself and seeks to be a precedent for future developments of this type. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was brilliant. And I'm going to invite the judges onto the stage, please. Hello. Great. Everybody's there. And Lizzie, I know you visited, so I'm going to start with you, please.
Great. Hi, Aaron. Nice to see you again. Thanks for having me. I've still got my fortune cookie. Great presentation. I suppose it would be good to hear a bit more. I know we talked a little bit about the curvature of the building. I suppose maybe if you could touch a little bit more on that. Was that literally because of the tree and the fact that you kind of continued it inside, or was there a research element behind that as well?
Yeah, it really started from multiple aspects really. We've got, architecturally speaking, we have the windows, the corner site and the tree. Those are three aspects architecturally that were driven by that. And probably when it first started is we were looking at how do we maximize views out. I mean, residents within this building will be potentially, they might not leave the building, and if they do, it'll be limited in terms of how often they do. So maximizing the opportunities for views out in multiple directions was key. So removing and having that kind of curved form on the bay windows, removing vertical mullions was a big one. We obviously had the corner site, and then that kind of that fluidity that was driven partially by its use, but partially by the site and the context was really important. And then what we really did is we drove that inside the building as well, where that really started to help deliver kind of meaningful and quality spaces for residents. So obviously no sharp edges, but also it allowed us the opportunity, as in one of the slides hopefully you saw, this kind of fluted both embossed fluting and inverse fluting on textures on walls, and that just creates texture which helps with kind of light reflectance that we were studying with. We did some work with the kind of University of Stirling, do a lot of work with dementia care and research into that, and it created some really kind of nice spaces that I think were fit for purpose, both contextually driven but also for the building's users.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, would you like to ask a question?
Aaron, hi. Yeah, great. I think a great architectural response to a difficult site. You had petrol station, remuneration, you had an existing tree, which is a very important thing in the context, and you, I think a bit of cross-rail action just to add in, just to help you along. So well done. I think I'm interested in you talked about connecting with local stakeholders. I'm interested in how you did that, and what processes and what actually happened to connect to local communities.
Yeah. So Belgravia itself has a number of kind of formal forums. So I think I kind of touched on there was the neighbourhood forum, and there's a society, and I think there's a residents association as well. At the time of designing this building, we actually just dropped straight into COVID's first lockdown in 2020. So the nature of those meetings, they were held online. But actually, inadvertently, they were probably longer and more in depth because people were more engaged. And I wouldn't say they had more time, but they, I think people weren't as suddenly busy in March 2020, April 2020, and they're really engaged with that. And I touched on the fact that the Belgravia Society were actually at the time developing their design guide. They were updating their design guide, and it had quite rigorous kind of architectural language and design rules historically, and something that we wanted to kind of push forward. We knew contextually that we had the Ebury estate and we had the Chelsea Barracks that were being sites that were being developed neighbouring our site, and they were obviously bringing forward something that was because they weren't right on that conservation area necessarily, they were bringing something that was far more contemporary. So it was something that we had to kind of merge architectural language between the two. And at the time, it was it was interesting. It was really good conversations, but it's a project that genuinely, if we've ever been outside and we've been standing there and we've been just looking at it, people have stopped us and said positive things about it. It's been really well received by local residents, including people who live on the townhouses, which are just ground plus one story along St Barnabas Street to the neighbour it. So it's been really well received. I think the engagement was good given the time and a bit of context. Yeah,
Okay,
really proud of it.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. James.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, Aaron. You mentioned a few of the design decisions, like no dead ends or no sharp edges within the space, and how you consulted with the University of Stirling and on some of those. I'm wondering, is there any of that research that's gone, or design decisions that have gone into the building based on that research being monitored in terms of the resident well-being and can feed back into that research in any way?
So in a simplistic way, the easiest way that's being pushed forward is through the operator themselves. So they've got a number of homes. So first thing that they came to us with was a really comprehensive brief with lessons learned more than anything else about what they'd done in previous homes and that they wanted to improve on. And so that engagement is now ongoing, and the reception of that, and hence why I wanted to finish with a resident's quote, I think, there as well, about how that's actually being translated. It's all well and good, obviously, us designing something and we think it's brilliant, but if a resident doesn't enjoy it and it doesn't translate to them, then that doesn't work. So in the initial sense, that I think that engagement's happening at an operator level, and then I think there'll be a really good concept to bring that back to the University of Stirling and say, look at what we discussed, look at what we did, and look at how it's working. The building's been in operation just shy of a year now, so it's a key time for us to pick up the pick it back up basically, and look back into that. But on the surface, it's been very well received, and I think from day one, creating knowing that residents were going to need to likely be in the building for a long period of time, those views out are spoken about with the windows, but also just that opportunity to go for a walk. There's a lot of generosity in the public spaces inside the building. the width of corridors is far in excess of building regulations requirements, just to give that kind of generosity of space and quality for people to break out onto and not find themselves lost at the end of a corridor.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else got anything else to ask? No, I know you sort of asked them on the visit. Great. Thank you very much, Aaron. Thank you to the judges.
Thank you for your time.
We will
Thanks,
be-
Aaron.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, look at that applause. Okay, so on to our final presentation of this session, which is Miller's Quay in Wirral for Peel Waters with Howells, Pension Insurance Corporation, Wirral Council, Homes England and Graham. Presented by Richard Maudsley, Director of Development at Wirral Waters, and Alan McCartney, Partner at Howells. Hello, Richard and Alan. Great
Hi.
to see you. Hi, thank you. And there is your presentation. Great. I'll see you in 10 minutes. Go for it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Great to be in the company of everyone and see the slides that have been shared thus far, and excited to share. I'll take everyone through this, and Richard's on board to go into more detail. I'm sure there'll be questions that he'll be well placed to answer. This is really a marketing slide, but it's one that sort of encapsulates at the end of the process really the foundations that have led to about a decade of work to get to where we've got to. And what I'm hoping to convey, or take the opportunity to convey, is how political will from 15 years ago plus led to a master plan that led to a construction skills college and higher education interventions that then really, as the last piece of the jigsaw puzzle, I've seen those students come forward to actually then deliver meaningful change and create a fundamentally new way of restructuring their community for an area that is in significant deprivation. Just by means of context, Liverpool's at the top of the screen. We're on the left bank of the River Mersey. It's a site that is in Peel Holdings. It's about 300 acres in single ownership, and it's strategic on a national level, really, that was brought together to address the extent of deprivation and social concern that's were present in this part of Birkenhead. And that resulted in alignment between the UK government, and that was generating an enterprise zone and free port status to enable the development funding models to be built up from those foundational principles. Homes England have done a lot of funding, particularly around the interventions in the landscape and the wider connectivity back to the transport points. Wirral Council, other public partnerships, Peel, and local education providers to bring the full context full circle. The site, before it sort of manifested to where it is today as a brownfield, post-industrialised area, we had the first publicly funded municipal park in the UK. That was Birkenhead Park, and that was inspired by New York Central Park. The first street tramway in Europe, which is actually now, as in many UK cities, we're putting back in the trams that we took out on our landscape and design as in anticipation of that, and the tram stop coming further to the east of our particular site. The SS Great Britain was built here. It was launched in Bristol, but actually Birkenhead was the core maritime shipbuilding, and Cammell Laird are actually still based on the site today, and I'll touch a little bit on that and how we're trying to create context as a result. And there were other pioneering social housing models that were brought forward in this area, which again, very much testament to the way that Peel have actually achieved a delivery model with negative value and negative investment equity requirements in this particular setting. We're part of a master plan, which at the time of submission was the largest ever brought forward in the UK. Overall, it's about £3 billion worth of development, 20 million square foot. But outside the construction of a construction skills college, we were the first development to go. So we were really the ones that needed to create the wider context. And our overarching design driver was place-led, jobs-driven initiative. And that's the core aim really of the master plan itself. So Miller's Quay is a £130 million investment project, 500 homes across 6 buildings that sit in a 6-acre site. It's a build-to-rent model with 20% affordable housing that's provided, and then Richard will be able to touch on the delivery structure and the mechanisms that enabled us to come forward with the design. The impact, as I've touched on, we were the first major site to come out of the blocks of the master plan, effectively establishing a context which hasn't existed, particularly in the residential world. We've had 440 students involved in the construction of this development that have come through the Construction Skills College, brought first as part of the master plan. 1,000 construction jobs were created in its delivery, and 75%, and this is where Graham's were fantastic as contractors, 75% of the workforce lived within 30 miles of the site, with a £44 million spend back into the local supply chain, so that circular economy principle absolutely embedded and key to how the tender was won. The site, as it currently stands, it's a vast exposed landscape. It's industrial in scale, it's industrial in its character, and it remains a working wharf. And some of the concerns with that and the challenges are fundamentally that you've got large buildings, such as the ones in the middle of this photograph, that they employ 13 people. So the employment and the job and the economic growth in the area just isn't there, and that's a reflection in the wider loss of industry and investment in this part of Birkenhead. And we're actually looking at the site in the centre of the screen, and we inherited a brownfield setting. It's a raw but fantastic place. It's not a natural residential setting, and that was one of the fundamental challenges about how we create identity and placemaking and really aspire to capitalize on what we've got as assets here and to excel and create that identity for a new community that didn't exist and doesn't actually have community setting to exist in that context. Looking slightly back, this is actually the site on the left-hand side, and there were a lot of flour mills and the bringing in of copper, lime, other minerals and chemical engineering actually that went on in the early days of the 20th century, and all of that was removed. But there are pockets of legacy that were sitting around the site in context. Some of the most successful are actually all of the bridges that give us splashes of colour. They were once steam driven, and the steam infrastructure is actually retained in situ in our site. But today they're electrified, but still in full operation and part of the actual story and context. In the 1990s, about 400 metres, half a kilometre away from the site, this grain warehouse was converted into residential homes, into flats, and those have sat effectively in a desolate landscape of sort of industrial brownfield land until our scheme's coming along close to that setting. The outline master plan, it had sound principles in its intent, but we felt that a different approach would be much more appropriate. Just very basic common sense methodology that everybody would get a view of the water, everybody would achieve sunlight into their home at some point of the day. No single aspect north-facing homes would be provided, and every pair of buildings would have a shared private garden for the residents. Ample parking, because that is part of the story on this site, and that everybody would have public access to the waterfront, and we're promoting future and ongoing access to that for residential moorings and sports and activities. Really ordered and structured repetition in the master plan and the architecture, and that's partially driven to derive quality and efficiency in the overall building approach, and it's also akin very much to how the Victorians had ordered the wharf side long before we were involved in the site. But we did also want to really indulge in this idea of beach huts by the bay, to have confidence and colour, to create a place that had its own identity. So we stepped quite firmly away from, say, a brick solution and something that would allow us to create personality and create context and setting. And that allows residents to say that I live in the red building, I live in the blue building. So that intuitive way showing a sense of home and place is created instinctually by the architecture itself. That complements the maritime context and the maritime colours that are also relevant to the site's history. And there were a few other themes, particularly in the way that we dealt with metal work and balconies and generosity of balconies that came from sort of 1930s boat building and boats that were built on the site. And that's led to the buildings themselves. We've got a mix of 1 beds and 2 beds, efficiently derived. So these are buildings that have very subtle ways of making them quality homes, such as 3.2 metre floor to floor height, just to give a little bit more generosity to the ceiling height, differentiation of the quality of the home to other products, let's say in Liverpool, which we're quite close to. And the 2 beds slightly more conventional in its setting, but these ones have 6 metre wide balconies, really to appreciate the generosity and the wildness of the setting and the environment within which the scheme is placed. Each building has its colour and identity, and its name then derived from the minerals that are actually found on site during the early site works and excavations, just as a way of, again, embedding the legacy in the setting.
And then just a general view showing the scheme fully built out. We've got a taller building on the left-hand side as a marker tower that's come first to give some sense of scale and prominence. And then the living room, the small pavilion building set in front of that, that's the democratic amenity, outside of amenity provided in the buildings for each of the residents to come together. A little bit of a feel for how the architecture was detailed. It's corrugated metalwork, and they're sort of unashamedly overscaled residential developments, sort of industrial buildings in their language, but complementary in scale to the adjacent converted grain warehouses. At a longer term view, the signage is a way of articulating, and then once you get up from the macro scale to close up, it's the color that allows orientation within the site itself. And then just to touch on the importance of landscape, this is one way to give identity and setting to the wharf side, and it's a really robust riparian landscape setting that's been brought forward, and that's democratically placed in private gardens in between each of the double coupling of the building. There's a small pavilion building that I've touched on, just present on the corner of the site, and that provides some of the lounge, co-work, social gathering spaces and functions, and then the required gym is also one of the notches in the bows in that. And that's a democratic waterfront, and everybody gets the same immediate relationship to the water through that pavilion. The sustainability aspirations are commensurate to the setting of the scheme. It's an all-electric proposal, and EPCB's fabric first and sort of appropriate to the level of the developments that's coming forward. Huge amount of biodiversity net gain, and a lot of the urban drainage initiatives have gone in, particularly around the landscape, to manage runoff into the water. But because of the site's location, that was tremendously beneficial to us. And then just a final shot to show you in the overarching context, to the beach huts with a reflection in the waterside and sunrise. And then I'll pause on the last slide and not talk over it, but just to identify, we get to be part of an overarching team that delivers these developments, and everybody's been fantastic in sort of executing and being committed to the project overall. Thank you. Hopefully that was around 10 minutes.
Thank you. That was perfect timing. Lovely presentation, and I'm going to invite the judges onto the stage, please. Thank you. Those hearts coming through. Great. I'm going to start with James. I think you visited, please.
I did, yeah. Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, Alan, and your time in showing me around on site. You made quite an interesting point there about the grain warehouses that were developed in the 90s, and they stood quite isolated in a desolate landscape. And I'm just interested to hear if there's been any kind of catalytic impact of this site that you've brought forward on the wider Wirral Waters master plan in terms of investment or perception or community benefit that ensures that this plot doesn't remain isolated like those grain houses have done.
Yeah, Richard, can I perhaps volunteer you to come in on that?
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Thanks, James. Yeah, I mean, the start of Wirral Waters in terms of delivery, we started planting trees back in 2014. So that was really the start of sort of the manifestation of change. And since then, the projects have got sort of larger infrastructures put in the college, the construction faculty, which was the first building. We've done some managed workspace since then. And we've also done some family houses in a partnership with Urban Splash. So you start to see these pockets of things coming out, these new things coming out, which fit into the existing community. Miller's Quay is by far and away the largest project at £130 million. So it was quite a big, bold project, both in terms of our commitment to do 500 homes in one fell swoop, but also in terms of the scale of the investment. So has it been a catalyst? Absolutely. It's been a huge catalyst in terms of putting a focus onto this part of Wirral. Wirral has hidden its light under a bushel for far too long. And one of the issues that we wanted, or one of the sort of the things that we tried to drive with Miller's Quay was that catalytic benefit, both in terms of what it looked like and what it did for the impacts in terms of community on the local area. But certainly government are interested in it, other investors are interested in it, and the fact that it's been a success from an occupational point of view, again, it's starting to give other partners a little bit of occupation and investment confidence to come alongside us and to help to regenerate this part of the world.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, James, if it may just take 2 seconds to add. I think just really, as Richard said, where there wasn't an economic confidence to build anything in this area. We now actually have, well, the landscape went in first, which is fantastic. Homes England's enabled that through HIF funding, and that landscape connects the grain warehouses actually all the way back to the tram to the east, and then it comes all the way up to Miller's Quay. And as Richard's touched on, we now have family housing that sits on either side of those two sites. And then because we've had to respond in a very positive way, actually, there's been a lot of sort of issues with parking and things like that have all been really addressed now that there's a much more comprehensive site-wide sort of initiative to make sure that the entire sites are working homogeneously together. So really, it's just been a practical good neighbour to those particular residents in their own right, who were, as you would appreciate, they were just incredibly welcoming. It was sort of a, can you get on with it, please? Because we really need it. And I think you saw just we're getting the village shop put in. Sorry, I should have mentioned that just immediately beside us. That's on site now. And for the local residents and for our residents, I mean, that's where you get a pint of milk on a Sunday night. So again, all of that has come really through the ambition commitments and thankfully the residential quantum that we now have to bring those additional uses on board.
Great.
Thank you. Lizzie.
Hiya, thanks both for the presentation. I feel like you just probably answered the question I was about to ask about the village shop, but yeah, I suppose what kind of other amenities, I know you mentioned the pavilion and the kind of area that people can congregate and the gym, but how much is there kind of community building within the people that living in the buildings? And also, I suppose, just what other kind of commercial buildings or amenities are you expecting to be in the area to make it a bit more vibrant for those that live there?
Shall I take that, Alan?
Please.
So yeah, we have made sure that within the master plan, the wider Wirral Waters master plan, we have opportunities for amenity. We need to create that amenity, both in terms of those sort of household names, and we are delivering a Sainsbury's local next door to Miller's Quay right at this moment in time. But also we've got other projects such as Edgerton Village, which is more about localised provision, independence, organisations from the Wirral coming in. To the moment, there's a real lack of amenity. So we need to sort of bring that cheek by jowl with the new residents and the new employment opportunities that are coming forward. Other infrastructure is required, so and that's the things that we can't control. It is the sort of the streetscape improvements back up to the transport nodes and back up into the main retail town centres, which is Birkenhead town centre, which is probably 1.5 miles from this project. So we do need to improve those sort of streetscapes. And also, things like the cycling infrastructure, building that in tandem with what we're doing within Wirral Waters. So,
thank you.
Mark, over to you.
Hello, guys. Alan, thanks for the presentation. You used the word pioneering at the start, which I think this really is. This is proper bold regeneration. And congratulations to you both for bringing this forward and with such striking architecture as well. I guess my question's around it's difficult, isn't it, when you're designing something in a wasteland? Alan, how connection wise, some of those connections are future connections, and some of them are current connections. How did what's there currently and what's there in the future inform your design?
It's it's perfect context, Mark. So we were blessed in a way that we had the master plan and we had the political will to do it. Now it did take 2 years to get the deals done, and part of the exercise and what was delivered was we were unable to go back on what those deals were because there's a lot of investment from our council and sort of effectively shoring up. Now, sorry, to actually answer your question, to the north of the site, there's a landscape strip that connects all of the master plan sites together so that actually you can walk back to the tram network, the underground network,
right,
and get into Liverpool. So that was in, that's part of the HIF funding in Homes England and other funding sources were part of that story. Our landscape identity on the southern side is unique to us to give place setting for our residents, but actually it is part of a tapestry of pocket spaces and squares that have now gone in all the way back along the water's edge so that you can just walk along the water should you want to. And then thankfully Miller's Quay, because it's at the end of the promontory, there's in the region of 6-7 kilometers of a looped walk that you can now do on the ground, and that's brilliant. So that's bringing us, Richard, I'm trying to buy time because I forgot the name of the tram stop on the eastern side, but that's one that you can walk to at the moment with the landscape. But as Richard's touched on, there's another railway station to the south of us, and that's actually now that we've got the residents and the population connection, that's the level of landscape that needs to come forward, and cycling that needs to come forward to get connected to the wider railway network, not just the local underground back into Liverpool. But that was brilliant. That really was coming forward, and we were able just to tie into that.
And I think, Mark, this is sort of hardcore regeneration. You know, it is hard, it is difficult, and it's all about, only happens through collaboration, true and honest collaboration between ourselves and the public sector and all the other different agencies that are involved, as well as the community groups and cultural organisations that we have there. You know, that it's a sort of a full team effort, really. And each step is quite a small step, but Miller's Quay has been a sort of a major leap forward, and all the other sort of infrastructure does need to start to sort of, you know, accelerate a little bit more, so we can actually knit this place back together again. It's broken as a place, so how do we kind of, you know, fix it? And a lot of Wirral Waters is less about the housing, it's more about the jobs. You know, we need to grow and diversify the economy. That's why this place is so deprived. It's been reliant on shipbuilding and sort of port for many decades, and that has declined. So every project that we have has a jobs dimension, you know, to it. So, which is why we were delighted that, you know, building the construction college and putting that front and centre in Wirral Waters, and making sure that we actually take on those students onto every project, and getting 440 students involved with Miller's Quay, FE students, 16 to 19-year-olds, has been a great success, really. So,
thank you.
And one last quick question: is there anyone at the FE college that works there, or pretends, probably more likely works, that lives there?
We've got actually in Miller's Quay itself.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anybody from the college. We do have people from University of Liverpool and John Moores University who live in Miller's Quay, so they quite like the idea of having a bit of Wirralness, whereby you're a bit more in contact with the elements, but you've got Liverpool on your doorstep, and a fantastic way to get to work on the ferry across there. I don't know, to answer your question, I don't know whether or not there's any of the left. I would imagine there are, because there's probably about 1,000 people who live in Miller's Quay at this moment in time. So probably.
Okay.
I can definitely vouch for the contact with the elements from the site visit that we had.
You know where you are.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, everybody, all the presenters and judges, and that concludes the presentations of the finalists in this category. It's been a brilliant and varied shortlist. The judges have now got the difficult decision ahead, so they will retire to make their deliberations, and it's all from us for now. But just to remind you that you can keep watching the Pineapples. Well, I think it's the last session, but you can watch back on anything you missed using the schedule button. And do not forget to buy your tickets for the party and for the Festival of Place in June. We look forward to seeing you there. Thanks for being here. Goodbye.